Welcome into this week's edition of Bull Ring Breakdown here with Terry Pierce. This is the race recap for, oh boy, what would that be? 5/17, May 17th. Was that the date Saturday was? I
Yes, it
don't
was.
even,
Yep.
I don't even have a calendar. So before we get started here, I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, YouTube page at Woodhall Raceway on Facebook, Woodhall Raceway 64 on TikTok. Terry, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, Joe?
Good, good. I think the way that it's turning out, I guess we're gonna do most of these on Mondays. It seems like Sundays I get a little too busy. I don't know if you are, but
Yeah, I like that's my only day off out of the week, so I kind of like that. Yeah.
that's how I feel too. I didn't think you had a day off.
Well, a lot of times I don't, but I try to take Sundays off when I
So this weekend, this past Saturday night, that was brought to you by Hubertus Service Station, Ken's Auto Collision, both located in Canisteo, New York. So we want to thank them for uh, being this weekend's presenting sponsors. And Terry, I guess if you don't have anything, we can get right into it with the heats. I
can.
would
Yep.
say these heats were a little bit more eventful than I guess the past few weeks. Seemed like the past few weeks everything was pretty much just green. But so the Insinger Performance Modifieds they came back. Joe Ginn he picked up the win in heat race number one. It was nice to see Joe back. I know the night we'll get into it, but the night probably didn't end the way that he wanted it to. But it was nice to see him back. And Brian Doolittle he picked up a win as well in heat number two. Anything there?
Both them cars were rockets. They really were. Both them cars were hooked up. And again, the weather played a factor, and the rains came there a little bit, rained for a little bit, but overall we got the track was in pretty good shape and there was a lot of bite in it at the end of the night.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I guess before we get in there that uh, I I think we started what a half an hour late. I think we got hot laps started at 6:30 and racing about 7. And I do want to say the hats off to Pierce, Terry Brewer and them guys because I think the rain kind of stayed a little bit later or longer than they originally anticipated, but they did a really good job and we didn't start that late for what we had to deal with. So hats off to them guys too.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. I mean, we spent a lot of time on Saturday staring at that radar. It doesn't seem to get any better on Saturdays. It seems like every Saturday we spend hours just staring at that radar, trying to decide if we can get by or not.
Okay, so next we go to the Southern Tier Custom Late Models. Steve LeBaron, it was nice to have him back with us. He picked up the win the first heat. Second heat went to Kurt Stebbins. Um, Kurt's been racing. I don't think he's missed a week this year.
No, he hasn't. He's been there every week.
Yeah, and Steve LeBaron, his first time out, so it was nice to see him back with us. Joe Wilcox, Performance Automatic Street Stocks. Dan Gardner picked up the win in Heat Race 1. Teddy Morseman, the win in Heat Race number 2. And I will say that I thought Teddy Morseman had an absolute rocket ship in that heat race. I don't know if you remember it now that it's Monday, but I think that thing was hooked right up, and I guess he even had it in the feature. That thing was a rocket all night.
It was absolutely in the feature, man. He was all over Dan, that's for sure. He was
He
right
was.
there.
Um, Hometown Excavation Great Sportsman, Kenny Peoples Jr. won heat number one, and Quentin Buchanan won heat race number two. It's good to see Quentin pick up a heat race win. I think
Oh,
he's I think he's gonna have a feature win in his future for sure.
yeah, we've talked the last couple of weeks. He's had some really terrible luck. Week before he was running decent and broke on the backstretch going into turn three. This week he put it together and yeah, it was nice to see him in victory lane for the heat win. That's for sure.
So next we had the Quad Cs. Chris Woodard, he won heat race number one. Last week's feature winner, Tony Dickerson, won the second heat race for them. Um, both of them fast, always fast.
They
Uh,
were, and I'll tell you that class is growing this year. It's turning out to be some pretty good competition in that class.
Definitely. And I'll tell you one thing, them rear wheel guys are putting a little bit of I don't know if they took it to heart what everybody always says about front wheel drives get around there better, but they're kind of I know that the winner wasn't, but last week it was and I tell you, them guys are maybe. I think they might have took a little bit of offense to me always saying that front wheel drives get around there better because they've showed up for the past couple weeks and they've been really fast. Lad Road Auto Hobby Stocks Heat 1, Scott Brown, Heat 2, Dylan Phillip. And I will say that in Heat Race number 1, unfortunately, I would say one of the biggest fan bases at the Woodhall Raceway, Joe Birdsell, ended up on his. I think he actually ended up on the roof for a little while, then stopped on the side, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he did. He did. He is another one that he's not been able to catch a break at all this year. Matter of fact, I believe he said he has not completed a lap or he hasn't finished a race yet this year. So
No, it was a
yeah, that
lap.
didn't help. Was it a lap? Okay,
Yeah,
I knew he was. Yeah, yeah. That's insane for Joe Bertzel because he's usually right there in one of the top cars.
right. Next we had our intermission. Oh boy. Tony Dickerson, he won the driver of the week. Took me a sec. I don't have it written down and I was blanking.
Oh,
So,
right.
Tony Dickerson, he won the Southern Tier Custom Driver of the Week, won the Quad C feature the week before. Um, I think that was about it at intermission.
Yeah, I
I
believe
don't
so.
I don't think we did too much there. So then, well, I guess we had the Warriors before then, the Wicked Tees Warriors. I guess I forgot about them. And Isabella Morseman, she picked up the first or the second win of the year. She's driving the Teddy Morseman owned mini stock. That thing's, I don't know if you could find a better mini stock, or I think you'd have a hard time trying. And Bryce Matthews, he ended up second. Caden Thomas was third. Fourth was Courtney Thomas, and fifth was Matthew Freeman. Kind of a scary moment for Courtney Thomas. She got spun out, just flat blank at the beginning of the race, and then a little while later, one of the cars sent it into the corner a little bit too hard, popped her wheel, and then ended up. I think the front tire was just about. You could shed a little more light on this, but it looked like, from my perspective, the front tire was just about right next to her face.
It was, and that's something you don't ever want to see in this Warrior class. You know, it's two cars going to the corner like that, and the Matthew Freeman car kind of rode up the side of her and did it. They got hooked, and boy, it did a lot of damage to Courtney's car. They really thrashed on that car in the pits to get it back out later on in the night, but yeah, that was a scary moment for sure. I would hate to be a parent and see my child like that. You know,
Well, I don't think it took Danielle very long to get down there. So,
no, definitely not.
so as I said before, Bella Morseman, she picked up win number 2 on the season, which I guess would start the kind of run of dominance by the Morsemans, as they had one heck of a night. So then the Insinger Performance Modifieds came, the fire trucks that were in attendance as our salute to law enforcement, EMS, and fire. They honked the horns at the start of the feature. So on the front row, Russell Morseman the fourth started on the pole, and his dad, Russell Morseman, started right alongside of him. And Russell Morseman the fourth, he led for a few laps, and I think he led 2 laps. And then Brady Foltz was able to get by them both. Unfortunately, what did he say? I think he said his brakes locked up, and that caused the car to stall. So that
Yes.
brought out the caution and collected Joe Ginn, and that was kind of a hard one to see because Joe Ginn hit him really hard in the back, and I know it did a lot of damage to Joe Ginn's car, which is tough to see on his first night out because that's not really how you want to spend after your first night.
Yes, it was sad to see for Joe. I mean, he had a fast car in the heat, came out there in the feature, and he was coming up through the pack. He had a fast car, and he just caught a bad break. There was nowhere for him to go, and it wadded that car up pretty good for his first night out. He's got a lot of work to do this weekend.
Yes, he does. So then after the caution, Russell Morseman the fourth takes over, and I guess that was about it. 13 years old, wins his first ever modified feature event. I think he won 11 features earlier or 2 years ago for the Warriors, and this was his first one, and I would have to guess first of many for him.
Oh yeah, I think this is just the beginning. I can tell you, I seen some stats on it today.
That's
He's
what I was pulling
he's the
up right now.
youngest. Yeah, he's the youngest modified winner at Woodhull ever, and he's also the biggest or the he's the youngest big block modified um, anywhere to win a race in a modified at
Yeah.
13 years old. So yeah, I mean that's some pretty big stats right there. And you know the funny part is he learned to drive from the iRacing. I find that so cool that he spent so much time, doing the iRacing thing before his dad put him into the Warrior class, and that experience is definitely paying off. That's for sure.
Yeah, and well, that's kind of a neat thing because you see a lot of guys now getting big time deals because of that, and that kind of and just the seat time. And actually, he was the second ever or the second youngest ever to win a what was it, small block, big block combined modified feature too, and that was just by 83 days. So
Yeah,
that's I mean that's some really incredible stats for him. And and I do got to say one thing because I did see all over that his dad blocked for him the whole race, and that his dad does everything for him and all this and all that. And I'll tell you, for 13 years old, I do not know a kid that works harder. He worked on his dad's race car when he was even smaller, and I have no doubt that they continue to do it as a father and a son. And I have no time for anybody that says that he didn't earn this one, because I'll tell you right now, Russell Morseman is going to drive hard no matter where he is anywhere. You talk to anybody in the pits, Russell Morseman's always hard to pass no matter who's in front of him, where he is. And I've got no time to listen to anybody that says that. But I did see a lot of comments on Facebook about that, so I did want to address that a little bit.
yeah. The kid he does spend a lot of time in the shop with his dad. You know, it, he's only going up from here. No matter what you say about that feature win, there's going to be a lot more coming behind it. That kid's
Exactly,
future's just started.
for sure. So then,
I could tell you this, Joe, that last year was his first year in the modifieds, right?
mhm.
And just before the season started, the my phone was ringing, people were calling, and these guys were saying, "Really, you're going to let this little kid into a big block modified at Woodall? Like, we have a lot of money invested in our cars, and you're just going to let this kid go out there and he's going to wreck everybody, and all this stuff." I heard it from so many people. Then all of a sudden, the season started. The minute season started, never heard one complaint again the rest of the season. Not one time. This kid, not only has he got a lot of talent, he has a lot of respect for all his competitors out there, and a lot of these guys are now respecting him. He's earned their respect. That's for sure.
I was gonna say too, because I don't. There are sometimes when a young kid jumps in a full size race car, whether it's modified or not, and they have a tough time getting going, and they're bouncing off people. And he's always been, he keeps his line. He doesn't mess around. If somebody's faster than him, he lets them go, and he is a very respectful kid. And I just wanted to bring that up because I definitely had no time for anybody that wants to say that he didn't earn this one or doesn't deserve it, because he puts the work in just as much as anybody else does.
Yeah, yeah, and he was. I mean, he was even close last year, I believe. I think
Hmm.
pretty sure he won a heat last year, and
He did.
in
He
his rookie year,
and
he was all season long. He was there. So
right, and I can't remember the week it was or anything, but there was a week where he led a bunch of laps in the feature, and I think he kind of got a little overexcited, and I think he either spun out or almost spun out in the corner. And you know what? So it's nice to see him in victory lane, and like you said, I think it'll be the first of a lot because, if well, the Morsemans, as you'll see tonight, know their way around Woodhall a lot.
yeah, yeah.
So then what's this? Southern Tier Custom late model. They came out. I guess Rush Crate late models. Steve LeBaron, he started in the pole position. I mean, I don't know if anybody had much for him. I think Brett Marlatt, I think he was able to kind of close the gap, but I don't know if he really had anything to get around Steve. It might have been a little interesting to see if it would have stayed green. I know there were restarts late in the race, so I kind of wonder if it would have stayed green, if Brett might have had something for him, but I don't
Yep.
know. To me, it seemed like LeBaron was hooked right up.
He was. He definitely was. That car. He came out and that car was on rails. He was
So Steve LeBaron picks up the win, his first of 2025. Brett Marlatt second, third was Austin Allen, fourth was Richard McNeil, and fifth was Kurt Stebbins. And that brings us
no.
to,
Where did that Richard McNeil start? Do you remember? Because if I remember right, he come up through the field. He was working his way up through pretty quick too.
well, if you give me, well, I might need about, I don't know, probably by the time I look, I'll probably find out. Richard McNeil, well, that's the Heat, so that's not helping us any. He started sixth.
He started six. I was
Yep.
gonna say he was fast. I seen him there for a while. I was kind of keeping an eye on him, and he was coming. He was coming up through that field.
Yep, he picked up a couple of spots.
I wouldn't be surprised if we'd seen him in victory lane before the year's over. The way he was running.
Yep. And it was I do want to mention too, it was nice to see Brian Knowles back.
Yes,
Brian Knowles,
definitely.
I believe it's his first time out. I guess I don't know for sure, but I'd have to imagine that that is the oh, I should, do you know who that car belongs to?
Um, Tim Kelly.
Yep,
Last
Tony.
name is yeah.
Is it
Tony.
Tony
Yes,
Kelly? Tony Kelly. Yep.
he's. Don't tell. He's a good friend of mine, so don't tell him that I forgot his name.
Yeah,
It's
he
been one
drove
of those
last year.
Mondays.
He
Yeah, it's been
he
one of those Mondays for me.
hey, we'll allow it. We'll allow it. So he and Tony he came a few times last year. I think Brian's gonna drive that car from what I've heard, but
Yeah,
I guess you
that
never know.
car actually, yeah, they actually house that car there right at Brian's shop, so it's there all the time, and Tony doesn't always have time to jump in it and race it every week, so a lot of times it just stays parked. Well, Brian sold his car over the winter time, and I'm not sure if he's got another one on its way or just what the deal is, but I guess they reached an agreement that he's going to drive that one for a while.
Right. So that does it for the late models. The Joe Wilcox Performance Automatic Street Stocks, they were out next. There's some early cautions in this one. Let's see here. Dale Hotel and Clayton McLean, they started on the front row, but like I said, there were some early cautions. Teddy Morseman, he started in fifth and he ended up driving up to second, and this is where I thought he was going to win this race because he had such a fast car, and it looked like he was just able to run down Dan Gardner, who was your leader, but Dan Gardner or Dan Gardner did not let him by him. They put on a good race. Might have got into him a little bit, but at the end of the day, Dan Gardner picks up the win for his first win of 2025. I know Teddy probably wasn't happy. I can't say that I would be either, but he finished
Well,
second.
there was a lot of experience right there between them two drivers. And if it was the other way around, I think it probably would have finished the same way. They both know how to use a lot of the track up when they need to, and they did. And that's exactly what Dan did. Dan used that every bit of that track up. And yeah, I do believe that Teddy was faster.
I do
Um,
too.
he just couldn't catch a break there at the end to get by him. If he could have, I think he would have checked out. But yeah, it definitely you could see the experience right there between them two drivers.
Yeah,
That's
and
for
then
sure. And they raced clean.
uh, I might have to talk to Teddy because it did seem like after they got into each other a little bit in turn two that it looked like Teddy lost a lot there, and I'm not sure if something happened to the car or not, or if he just lost ground and couldn't make it back up when they were. I think it went green almost the rest of the way, so I don't know if he just couldn't make it up but it looked like Teddy kind of lost something. So Clayton McLean, he finished third. Dale Hoteling finished fourth. Good run for Dale. He's a nice kid. Jimmy Grant, I'd say a very rare appearance for Jimmy Grant. I think he's only been to Woodhull, what, two or three times since I've started. And he
Yep.
finished in the top five. Would you say that's the former Dylan CC car? Is
It
that
was absolutely, yeah. He bought that car from Dylan Cece, and I heard that he came to Woodhull. He just wanted to shake it down and see what he could do with it. He looked pretty good with it.
well, so this was so next up you had the hometown excavation crate sportsman. Brandon Buchanan, no, Brandon Morseman and Quentin Buchanan. They led the field to the green. Brandon Morseman led a bunch of laps. And for a while there, I thought the Morsemans were going to continue to dominate tonight because when he was out front, he looked very good, and I think he might have been the on the wrong end of a caution because the caution comes out on lap 8, and at that point, Kenny Peoples was second, and when you have a restart at Woodhall and you're in the lead and you look over next to you and it's Kenny Peoples Jr. on the outside, that's tough.
It
That's
definitely is. You don't never want to let him have that high side because
no.
that car works around the high side.
Right. So on the restart, Kenny gets by him and he goes on to lead. I think this was I think that might have been the only caution in this race. Uh, As and you know what? I'll give it to these guys because I told them all. All right. Well, I told whoever would listen. I said I want a better showing out of you guys because the week that we had was not a very good showing from you sportsman drivers, and they did. They did. They raced clean, respectfully, and I don't. I like I said, I think there was one caution. So I'll
Yeah,
give
they
my
did.
hats off to them because if I'm gonna rip them apart one week, I better tell them that they did a great job the next week.
And they did. They did. They did. They had it. It was a great race. It was a lot better than it was the week before.
Yep. So Kenny Peoples Jr. picks up win number one. Tim Guild was second, and Brandon Morseman third. Kyle Leach, good run for Kyle Leach. He was fourth. Quentin Buchanan fifth. Good run for Quentin Buchanan. Like I said, Kyle. And fun fact: Kyle Leach has never ran a brand new tire.
All right.
That's one of the things that I've picked up on this, and I don't know how many people can say they've never ran a brand new tire.
That's crazy. It is.
So that
Yep.
so that's a very
Well, the
good
good
run
thing
for him.
about I think the good thing about Woodhull is that it doesn't burn your tires up as quick anyway. You know what I mean? Woodhull seems to be pretty good on tires, so that definitely helps them.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the good thing too about Woodhall is you don't have the I mean it's not a horsepower track, you don't need everything brand new to go there and compete. So let's see here. What was next? The Wicked Tees Quad C. Well, all my information's all messed up now. If you just bear with me one second here. So Chris Small and Ryan Stone, they started on the front row there, and it didn't take very long for Blake Snyder, who started third, to get to the front. I think he might have been to the front by the first corner. Or if it wasn't the first corner, I bet it was not too far after that. And
Yeah,
and I think we got on here before and we said that he was gonna win a race this year, and it didn't take him very long.
it didn't. It didn't. He yeah, once he got out front, he kind of took off. And Chris Woodard tried to chase him down, and he was getting there. And I think it got toward the end of the race, and Blake almost spun out on his own, had the
Yep.
car completely sideways, coming out of four, but he ended up saving it. And yeah, he went on to win it.
Yeah, and a good run for Chris Woodard too. He finished second. He kind of had a tough week last week. I know he wadded up his street stock pretty badly, and I
Yep.
I watched the video, no fault of his own. But he did end up with a wadded up street stock, and then he couldn't make the feature or the yep, he couldn't make the feature in the quad C last week. So, a
Yep.
good rebound for him because that must have been a miserable drive home on last weekend. So,
Oh, I'm sure.
and Tony Dickerson, he was last week's feature winner. He came in third. Wesley Hoteling, he finished fourth, and Nate Freeland fifth. Uh, got anything
Wesley
else?
Hoteling. It's hard to believe that Wesley Hoteling has not found victory lane yet in 2025. The car that dominated all season last year, he's struggling. That just goes to show all these new cars coming to Woodhall and the Quad Cities. The competition is stepping it up. They're out. They were looking for him. I think coming in the first week, they were gunning for him, and it's working.
Hey, who won opening weekend?
Did he win opening weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my bad. But I guess he's not dominating like he did all last year anyway.
I understand what you meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did have to throw that in there but I will say, and I don't think Wes would mind me saying this, but he has seemed a little bit off the pace compared to what we're used to. But I guess in his defense, what we're used to is 11 feature wins in the past 2 years, and that's kind of a pace that's almost impossible to keep up.
Yes, that's true. It is true. And like I said, we heard it a lot in the off season. Everybody was like, you know what, we're coming to Woodhull this year. You're going to see us there every week. We're coming. We're going to try to beat Wesley. So yeah, everybody wanted to come and knock him off that top spot. And I know Wesley. I talked with him, and I know he's got another. He's got a different motor coming that he's putting in there. His race motor was not ready yet at the beginning of the season, so I think he's still running his old motor, but he does have a new one coming. So it'll be interesting as the season goes on.
Yeah, definitely. In this that Blake Snyder, he he could have almost 2 or 3 wins already just if he didn't have bad luck. I know last weekend he finished second. And I guess Tony was the better car then, but I think the week before he might have had a shot at Wesley that first week if he didn't have something let go in the car, and he ended up finishing fifth. But he lost a lot of ground there after something broke. So then we'll move on to the Lad Road Hobby Stocks, and if you stayed for the Lad Road Hobby Stocks, not only did you get one heck of a victory lane as you always do, but you watched a pretty good show. So they started out and Brandon, no, not Brandon Conklin. I'm sorry, Reese Hackett and Cody Byler. Cody, your good friend Cody. He started on the front row. Uh, and it didn't take long, and Joe Birdsell, who was on his side in the heat race, they put a post on Facebook that they worked pretty much all night and fixed the roof of that car because it was caved in pretty good. And he ended up he was in third on lap three.
Yeah,
So he
I'll tell
started
you,
he started
just the kind
11th
of
after
guy
being
that
on the side, and he was up to third on lap three.
and he was. That car was fast. But I'll tell you the kind of guy Joe Birdsell is. So I was on the infield, and after his little mishap in the heat of having the car over on its roof, I seen the car go to the pits, and the roof was yeah, pointed right straight in the middle of the hood was, or the roof was pointed up in the air, and I'm like, that car's hurting. It's bad. And next thing I know, I get a message that Joe Birdsell wants. He's asking for safety guys to come and tech guy to come inspect his car and tell him he wanted to make sure it was safe. He wanted to come out and race the feature, but before he did, he wanted them to look over his car and okay it. And I thought that was a really cool thing for him to do. It was a great idea. I'm glad he did. The guys went up, they looked it over and said, "Yeah, the car's good to go. You're perfectly fine. The roll cage was intact and was in great shape, and it was mostly just body damage. So yeah, he went out and he got it done.
And I can't imagine that he's got a lot of room between the top of his head and the top of that car because Joe's a
Yeah,
big dude.
yes, he is. He is, and yeah, yeah. I
So
stood there on the infield when they come out, and again, I'll say Cody Byler works for me, and he come out starting second, and this is only his second race he's competed in ever, and I'm like I told the kid to start in the back, and here he is coming out in second. And I guess him and his dad talked about it and decided he was ready, tried it, and he looked good up there. I mean,
mhm.
he did fall back, but for his only his second race ever, he didn't get in the way. He looked good up there, and he held his own for a little while.
Came home. Hey, he came home with a sixth place finish.
He
You know,
did, yes.
you
Seventh,
know.
seventh last week, sixth this week. So not bad for a kid that's never drove a race car at all, anything. He's never raced go kart or nothing. So yeah,
Yeah, and he's a good kid too. I don't. So and
yes,
it's nice to see younger guys too, especially in this hobby stock class. It kind of seems like most of them are on the older side, so it's nice to see younger kids get in there with like him and Cannon Palmer. I don't
yeah,
I don't know
definitely. Yep,
Zach Pipe, but maybe he's younger too. So I apologize if he is, but I don't know him.
yep. I kind of felt bad for Reese Hackett. Reese Hackett brought out the caution when he went over the backstretch.
Hmm.
And I went over there and looked, and he not only went over the backstretch, but went down into the field a little bit. And I get down to him, and his whole steering wheel and everything broke off in that car. So when he was going down the backstretch, there was no steering that car at all. The linkage in the steering rod broke, and the whole thing laid right in his lap. So had to be a scary moment for Reese. I can't imagine doing that.
Well, that and luckily, I actually say good thing that he got where he was because if he would have got hit, that's kind of a bad thing to have right staring at you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I mean,
There's
I
no
know
good
that I
place.
know they have the harnesses and everything, but you never know.
Yeah, yep, yep.
So then Joe Birdsell takes the lead, and I would say from there, Joe Birdsell and Brandon Conklin probably put on the best race you'll ever see. I think Brandon
Oh yeah.
Conklin got out to congratulate Joe in victory lane, and he said, if you didn't like that race right there, you don't like dirt track racing because it was the best race you could watch.
They were side by side, lap after lap, and never really touched at all. I mean,
hmm
they were.
And
Yep.
I bet you it was what probably close to 10, 12, 15 laps that they were doing
Yep.
that, and it was impressive to watch and.
It was. There was quite a few laps when they came out of the corner, and I said, right here's the one. He's going to get him. Brandon Conklin's going to pass him on this lap, and he didn't. Joe held him off, and kept the momentum on that high side, and Brandon just could not get it done.
Yep. So then we had, yeah. So Joe Birdsell, he picks up his first win of 2025, and I'll tell you that's probably a guy that really needed one this week because the first 2 weeks he has had miserable weeks, distributor problems, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this, but he has not been good all year. And then he rolled it in the heat race, which that was no fault of his own, but he rolled it in the heat race, and if there's one guy that probably needed a win, it was probably Joe Birdsell.
For sure.
Uh, Br
Absolutely.
Brandon Conklin came home second, Brian Austin third, Dylan Phillip fourth, and Scott Brown was fifth.
I'll tell you, the car to keep an eye on out here. Keep an eye on that Brian Austin 35 car. That
Yep.
car's been coming around. It's been fast every race this year. He's going to get there,
Yes, he will. And I don't think it's going to be very long. I
right?
I think he's gonna I think he's gonna find his way to victory lane too. Eh, and I think Reese Hackett will too. There's a lot of guys in that class I kind of think are gonna.
Oh, there is absolutely.
Mhm.
I think Cannon Palmer finished third in his heat, and he actually went across the scales, and that was his first time ever having to go across the scales. So that was kind of funny to see too. I mean, he was pretty excited. So and the kid, there's a kid right there. You won't find a kid that has more drive, more he wants to learn. So
And he made it over the scales fine.
I think he ran into he might have ran in the side of the scales a little bit trying to get up on there, but yeah, it was he was fine.
Well, that's good because I don't think he'd mind me saying this, but so he did better than Wesley Hoteling because Wesley Hoteling's been across that thing a bunch of times, and one time he drove right off the side of it.
Yeah, yep,
I
yep.
can't imagine that was his fault, but we'll put the blame on him anyway.
That's right. Yep.
So once again, that does the recap portion. It was all brought to us by Hubertus Service Station, Ken's Collision, both on Main Street in Canisteo. Uh, let's see here. I guess we can look forward now. This next week coming up, we got the George Williams Memorial, 2,500 to win for the modifieds. Is that extra laps on that, or is that just 25?
No,
Do you
that's
know?
nope. It's 25 laps, I believe, as far as I know. Yeah, I believe that's 25 laps on that
All
race.
right. It's 25 laps, and due to the rainouts at the beginning of the year, we're gonna add on the Lad Road Auto Quad C King of the Bull Ring, and that is $400 to the winner.
$400 for one-on-one race. And with the
Mhm.
amount of cars that have been showing up in the Quad Cities, this is going to be a thrilling race. You don't want to miss this one, that's for sure. These guys are they all want that $400.
And $400 if you don't go to Woodhall Weekly and you think you want to try it out, go race one on one for $400. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me ask you this: what about if I put you on the spot, Joe? How about you pick a winner for this? Who you got? Who do you think?
If he's there, I'm gonna go with Chris Woodard.
Chris Woodard? You think?
That's my pick. Yep.
You know what? I think I'm going to go with this last week's winner, Blake Snyder. I think he's going to get it done twice.
If if Chris Woodard's there, I think he'll do it. And
Yeah.
if he's not there, so I'm gonna put. I guess I'm taking two people because if Chris Woodard doesn't show up, then I think I'm gonna go with Boy, I don't even know who to pick. I guess I'd have to take the old chalk pick and pick Wesley.
Wesley.
I guess that'd
Well,
have to be.
that's a good pick.
Or you
There's
know what? I'm taking that back. Sorry, Wesley. I'm not picking you. Nate Freeland.
Nate Freeland. That there you go. That
Yep.
absolutely.
So I'm taking Chris Woodard. I don't know if he's going to race weekly at Woodhull, but if he does, I'm taking him. And if he's not there, I'm going to take Nate Freeland. Those are my picks.
There you go. I do believe Chris Woodard is going to be a regular at Woodall this year. I think his plans are is to race full season.
Yep. So what's he
So
is he kind of playing outlaw for the street stock and Woodhull for the four cylinder?
yeah, yeah, that's the way I took it anyway. Yes.
All right. Um well, I guess I better look at the sponsor for next week too. I'm all over the place here tonight. That's right. Elkland Moose Lodge. I should know that because I talked to you earlier about having to get a logo for him. So I should know that it was brought to you by Elkland Moose Lodge, but you know, kind of forget stuff.
Yep. No.
Went dark there for a minute. Well, Terry, what is that all we got this week?
I believe that's all we have at the moment.
Oh, and I do want to say that the not this upcoming week, that's the George Williams Memorial. The week after, May 31st, that's our autograph night, and
Yeah, oh yeah.
that's gonna be a good show. You bring the kids, bring everybody. We're gonna bring the cars on the front stretch. You can get your stuff signed by your favorite driver, and our Lowry Family Farms, they are donating hot dogs for Dollar Hot Dog Night. And I believe that's grandstand only. So if you're in the pits, wander over, get a dollar hot dog. That is while supplies last, I believe. That
Yeah, it is absolutely. And I got to tell you, Joe, I quit eating today at noon. I'm all done. I'm not eating again until Saturday. And I'm going to see how many of these hot dogs I can eat. That's my plan.
well, you might want to eat because that's the week after. So you might you might
I
want.
know I'm getting prepared. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready for it now.
We're gonna have to. Cody's gonna have to drive you over there.
I'm gonna have an appetite when we get there that night. I can tell you that.
So you're telling me that they're gonna have to donate a few more so that everybody else can get some.
I'll tell you, I've had some of Kyle's. I've had some of his hot dogs over at Lowry Family Farms. I've had some of their hot dogs. I've had their steaks over there. They're amazing. And I'll tell you, you know what else they got? And I'm going to get this week is they have these new all prepared meals. Like there's a brisket dinner, there's a macaroni and cheese dinner, and all you do is put them in the oven and warm them up. That's my kind of cooking right there.
Why you don't do much cooking, do you?
Oh no, I do. I do. I like to cook. I do. But
Well,
sometimes when I work late,
I know you're kind of spent for time a lot of times. So
yeah, there's a lot of days when I work late. So, and especially like these families with kids in sports and stuff, and when they get home at the end of the night, they can take these meals, they can throw them in the oven, warm them up, and bam, there's dinner. Dinner's ready. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Yep.
and I'll tell you too, there's nothing better than a homegrown steak. You know,
Yeah.
a real steak that's not filled with a bunch of crap, and
Yep.
that's what they offer. So if you want real meat, Lowry Family Farms, Savona,
Yep.
is
Savona.
that
Oh,
right?
just opened a brand new store in Savona. Matter of fact, I know I talked with them yesterday. They're getting all new signage in this week, I believe, or beginning of next week. And yeah, I had some of their steaks here 2 weeks ago. Put them on the grill, and man, I tell you what, they didn't last long.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make my way over there. I don't go that way very often anymore. So I'll have to make my way over there because, like I said, there's probably nothing better than an actual grass-fed beef steak, you know.
Yeah,
And
definitely,
and
definitely.
I'll tell you too that that's kind of hard to find anymore. You know, you go to the grocery stores, that's not what you're getting.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, absolutely. And here's another fact about Lowry Family Farms. They sponsor our turn three at the racetrack, and they have graciously called the other day and want to add up a bunch of gift certificates to give out to drivers who go off to turn three. So coming up here, there's going to be some drivers that are going to be eligible to win some coupons to try some of their food over there.
Now, and
So
I will say that I believe you talked to Kyle and that he wanted me to take charge of this. So I'm telling you, drivers, right now, if you all try to pile up into turn three, I'm gonna keep them. I'm, If you're gonna pile up into turn three, so you can all get gift certificates or coupons or whatever it is, I'm just gonna keep them. Me and Terry will keep them. We'll go get food for the week.
I'm okay. I'm all about that. But I got to say this much though: if we start doing this next week, I think you still owe one to Joe Birdsell, no matter what.
Yep.
He definitely needed after his performance in turn three last week. I think he definitely deserves one.
Yeah, and you know what? I could tell you one thing that there probably isn't a man that would like a gift certificate to get some real meat more than Joe Birdsell.
That's yeah, I'm sure.
So Terry, you got anything else, or are we ready to wrap this thing up?
I think we could probably wrap it up.
All right. So once again, big thank you to Hubertus Service Station, Ken's Collision out of Canisteo, New York. This week's presenting sponsor. I do want to remind everybody to like us and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a download. Go to the YouTube page. Hit subscribe. Hit like on that as well. At Woodhall Raceway on Facebook and Woodhall Raceway 64 on TikTok. Terry, thank you very much.
Absolutely, Joe. You have a great night. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, you too.